So initially you had, your grandfather had vines along with the prunes in that, well, if nothing else, in that section of what is now the old vines in the vineyard. Was it limited to those few, and how come it was Zinfandel?
Zinfandel seemed to do well on the property, and my dad liked Zinfandel wine, so you have the perfect two reasons to plant something. You know, if it does well, there's a demand, and you believe in what the product is. So you know, as the prunes were less viable, we just began targeting some of those areas and putting some in. There was Alicante Boucher on the property. While I came around late in the game. I was born in '61. So, you know, much of the history was already in motion. I was there for the very last part where grapes have come in, and Lord knows what'll be next. Hopefully, it'll remain as I see it. But you know, we're still early in the game.
So it sounds like a series of decisions that were driven by economic factors, with some interest in the product, but well, more than some interest in the product, but not necessarily a winemaker planting the grapes, but a series of economic decisions about what was viable for a farm.
Yeah, that's basically true. You know, the model of that day was fewer centralized wineries that would purchase grapes, you know, make wine, and then they would sell it to other entities as bulk wine. So the model wasn't a lot of small wineries making wine, bottling this stuff. You know, it was more bulk driven. Most of the wines that I remember, you know, the family drinking were, you know, in half-gallon and gallon jugs. You know, it was something, you know, it was just some of the food that you had. We didn't have the availability, and definitely at that age, I was too young to even really become focused on that. So, you know, that's just how wine was. You know, so you had varieties that made good wine, reasonable yield, easy to deal with. You know, in other words, if it likes the climate, it's going to be relatively easy to work with. Having all these prune orchards, kind of polka dotted with vineyards, I think there's a reason there were less pest issues, because there are sort of like unintentional integrated pest management. You have things growing in the orchards that eat things that you don't want in the vineyards. So if you have these things sort of planted next to each other, they take care of each other. And what I saw from my earliest memories of driving through Alexander Valley on the way to my grandparents' place, is there used to be lots of prune orchards. You know, I remember being very small, and these are very large trees. And then as I got a little larger, there were less of these orchards and more vineyards in. And so now it's very difficult to find any orchards out there. It's just been a change, say, in the '60s and '70s is when that transition occurred. And I think other people made that transition for the same kind of reasons.